Okay, so, heyo, my fellow Rumble Maniacs. It's Mr. Rumble Roses here, and welcome to another random installment of a series thing that I like to refer to as Rumble Rants and Rambles, where I talk about something that's on my mind, and I try to get it all in one take. No edits, no cuts, this, that, and the other. So, yeah. Today, Today I wanted to do a bit of a response type of video because I was originally thinking at one point in time that I was like, okay, here's the thing. Originally at one point in time I was thinking about doing this as a comment. Like I was gonna leave this as a comment on the video that I saw quite recently, but I was thinking to myself like, you know what? I think it actually might be better to just do it as a video. Maybe this individual that I'm kind of directing this towards. We'll see it. I doubt it. It's this, that, the third. I don't know. It's pretty much whatever at this point. Okay, but I wanted to, kind of set. I'm gonna kind of set the scene for you guys a little bit. So, I came across a video called the quote unquote anti-tunnel perk that punishes you for not tunneling dot 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 vent. And this was made by an individual named Professional Outcast, who I guess also is known, at least in the DVD space, from what I've seen mostly, is also known, I guess, as like Tainted Nim, which I guess is like short for Tainted Nemesis. I don't fucking know. And there's two things that kind of caught my there's two things that kind of caught me that kind of caught my attention. Okay, there's two things that kind of caught my attention that really just really wanted me to like make this long like like this long event, just to get what I had to say out of my system. So he talks about a perk called DS or Decisive Strike or whatever it's called now because of how it was known to be a licensed perk that was tied to a specific licensed character that is now free in general to the public. I think it might be called Will to Live. I don't know. Someone can correct me in the comments or whatever. But basically, in a nutshell, from this whole thing, this guy, I'm just gonna call him I'm just gonna call him Mr. Outcast, you know. But basically, Mr. Outcast was pretty much all like, this is the most this is like the most dog shit killer part. This is the most dog shit survivor part, in the history of the game. Survivor should be, running it whatsoever. It punishes you for not tunneling, even though, like, you don't know if they might have it or not, and everything. And it's like, okay, that's kind of like, and like on the one hand, it's like, okay, like you're annoyed about a perk, I can get that. Sometimes, people have those moments of, going off on perks, but even though I think it's pretty stupid because, because again, this is just my 2 cents, but people, take the game way too logically. They think that this is fucking like real life. And I have to say, Mr. Outcast, I think honestly falls in that that little category. All right, so there was that. But then the thing that really drive the nail home, and the stupidity and the entitlement factor, honestly, is basically him saying that survivors should not be able to should stop using second chance perks to to play in the game. Like they should stop using perks that helps them in any sort of way. You should get good at fucking looping the killer and everything like that. And then that would be better for everyone. And like I have to just say like, and I have to say like, Mr. Outcast, if you're someone listening to this, my God, are you a fucking idiot? Because like like how entitled can you be? Okay, like not every survivor is going to be a god tier looper, and I think deep down, honestly, you don't want that. And you want to know why I say you don't want that? Because if if there was survivors who are good at looping, good at being chased. But if there were survivors that were good at looping, and everything like that, then it would be even more miserable for killers. Okay, like it would be more miserable for killers now, even now than what is currently going on. Like you would you would you would your games would be your games would be just as bad without the quote unquote second chance perks, and you would not even get any kills, let alone fucking hooks in the game. Okay. Now, I myself will admit that I am not the best survivor player in the whole game, and I know it, and I go and I stand by it. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say that like that I can loop that I can loop a killer for 5 gens to the point where either like A, they stop chasing me altogether, or B, they disconnect. Okay? I'm not gonna sit here and say that like, oh, I can be able to loop a killer for 5 gens, do a gen or two, while getting the aggro from the killer, and then this to do this, that, and the other. Okay? And I even say the same thing, when it comes to whenever I would play killer. Like I'm not the best killer player in the world either. I'm not gonna sit here and say that, I'm so good at the game that I can be able to 12 hook everyone while still having like 5 gens up. You know, not everyone is going to be the fucking god tier looper that that you so want, that you so want in this, in this whole game. And I think that and I think like the more you realize that, the more that you honestly just shut the fuck up. And not just from only you personally, but everyone else. Because it's like you know you want the game to be heavily favored towards one side, and that's basically the killer. Because basically you're saying because basically you're in whether you want to admit this or not, but you basically are saying You know, you want killers to have, the power role. You want survivors to be able to go down and just, just like, one hit, like they're fucking running no mither, or no mither, whatever you want to fucking call it, or however you want to fucking, refer to that. You want, you want it to where, like, people can't build to save, their teammates because it's like, oh, there's no more base kit BTs where it's like, oh, you have to run BT now in order to, get someone, in order, like, to save someone. Otherwise, then it's like, oh, or otherwise then it's like this, oh, I'm going to just, hit you, not give you a chance to fucking play, and make that, and make this person's game, whole game, miserable. That's, that's honestly what I feel like comes out of your mouth, and I feel like that's what comes out of every other killer's mouth. Like you guys never can seem to shut the fuck up and, and just play the damn game. Like not everything is always going to go in your fucking favor, okay? Just like how I know as a survivor, since I, main survivor, but more than killer, like I know everything's not always going to go in my favor. Sometimes I might get that lucky moment or two where it's like, oh, I can be able to, live through, getting all 5 gens done. Oh, I can be able to leave through the exit gate. Oh, I can be able to somehow find the hatch without using Left Behind. Stuff like that. You know, and this also kind of this also kind of brings me to the point where it's like I feel like, and I've talked about this before in like in a past video or so, but I feel like at this point, because like everyone talks about like all the game modes and stuff like that, that honestly like we should just have like this could be temporary. It doesn't have to be like a fucking forever mode that gets put into DVD. But honestly, at this point, because I feel like Mr. Outcast and everyone else, who plays killer and goes off on what I feel like the most stupid shit, you know, that we need honestly just to perk this game mode where it's like survivors can't be able to bring in perks or add-on or items, and killers cannot be able to bring perks or add-ons, and it's just raw, it's just raw, pure quote unquote skill. Okay, and it's like, and like if people and if like survivors, want to hopefully like maybe find a way to like get healed quicker or do gens a little bit quicker, then that would be the quote-unquote incentive to try and fucking, um, go around the map, looking for chests, go quote-unquote shopping, as a certain someone like, that I used to play with used to say, and everything like that, and then everyone would be happier. Especially, with the killer mains, because it's like, oh, I'm actually, of course, because then, in my opinion, it's like, oh, I'm actually facing people, and I'm not facing fucking perks, you know? And I think, honestly, that would be like that would honestly be like the quote-unquote step in the right direction. And like I said, like, it doesn't have to be like every now and then. I mean, it doesn't have to be like all the time or a permanent thing, but I feel like at this point we just need like a mode every now and then. It could be rare. It could be like once a year type of thing. Where it's just like like everyone has no fucking perks on either side. And it's just raw, raw skill. Quote unquote again. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to get off my chest and everything. Because like I said, like I'm going to end with this, okay? And this is mainly towards Mr. Outcast himself. So I don't know you personally or anything, and I know, and then you seem like you seem like you could be a genuinely good guy. I'm a good manicular bread or whatever the fuck that word is that you like using in your descriptions of your videos. But I feel as though that like you say like how you talk about survivors have this entitlement in them, like they go to fucking Twitter and rant and rave about it, killer site and everything like that, and it's like honestly, even if you don't use fucking Twitter, you're just as bad as the people that you're claiming that are more bad than the other side. Like you're basically just like them, but but on the opposite role at this point. Okay, like fucking, I've yet to see. I've hardly ever seen really any videos where it's like, oh, like these fighters were good. They didn't have like this that or the other of a perk to to use them to use in game, and help them win chases, or like someone's getting up from a slug, or whatever. It's like it's just ooh, just straight up just ugh. So yeah, that's all I got to really say, because repeat my words and all that. So yeah. Again, and I don't know if I don't know if he's gonna see this. I don't know if Mr. Outcast is gonna see this. I don't know if anyone's gonna see this. I don't know. I don't care at this point. But at this point, I'm just getting things off my chest, because that is what Rumble Rants and Rambles is all about. So yeah.